What makes a great speaker?
If I distill it to one thing, it's that the audience feels that they can trust them. If they basically feel that you're the same person on the stage that they might be having dinner with, then you'll create a phenomenal connection.
Welcome back to the Impact Through Voice podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hugo.
The ability to speak, the ability to tell a story, the ability to connect authentically with people is not a skill. It is a human trait.
I'm here with Eric Edmeades. Now, Eric is one of the most authentic and engaging speakers that I have ever experienced.
I stayed terrified of speaking until I was in my mid-30s.
What changed it then?
I can tell you the one thing that didn't change initially. It's one of the things that traps somebody in fear. If you're standing at the door of the plane thinking of jumping out, I'll accept your nervousness. But what is this? Nervousness in front of an audience is an unconscious plea for attention and sympathy. That's what it is.
Hey, I'm Lisa Hugo, and I am obsessed with helping other people find their voices so they can go out and take on the world, be seen as an authority, an expert, and grow their business by sharing that knowledge and expertise with others. Now, I studied performing arts, and I spent 20 years of my career traveling the world as a professional singer-songwriter. I teach you the secrets to speak up and be heard, overcome your fears, and then use these skills to build a business and a life that you love and that could change both your own life and the lives of others. This is your one-stop shop for all things that are going to help you to build a life on your terms. This is Impact Through Voice.
Welcome back to the Impact Through Voice podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Hugo, and I am genuinely very excited about today's guest. I'm here with Eric Edmeades. Now, Eric is one of the most authentic and engaging speakers that I have ever experienced. He's shared stages with Tony Robbins, with Richard Branson, with Bill Clinton, and he's one of Mindvalley's most highly rated speakers and trainers. And today, he's here to share his experience on public speaking and how we can make you one of the most powerful and unforgettable speakers. So welcome, Eric.
Thanks for having me. I'm sure this is going to be fun.
Yeah, I'm really, really excited about this. And I'm so grateful because you were just passing through Dubai and we were just talking about that. Yeah. And you happened to pick up on my message and here we are in the studio. So I'm very, very grateful.
I find every time I come to Dubai, it's like that. You just suddenly, the messages come in and there's cool stuff to do all the time. So I'm glad we could make it work.
Great. I'm going to throw a question at you to start with. What makes a great speaker?
Well, I mean, we could take I could answer that for an hour now.
Okay.
I think if I distill it to one thing, it's that the audience feels that they can trust them. That really is the difference. Like, you can be very polished and you can be, really slick on stage and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is that when an audience walks into a room and they see somebody on the stage, they might not even be conscious of this, but they have a question. And the question is, why are they here?
Yep.
What are they here doing? Are they here to sell me something? Are they here to manipulate me? Are they here to control me? Are they here to bore me? What are they here to do? And if they're guessing about that, then you have to imagine that the first impression you make, the way you're dressed or the way you open your talk or the way your intro is read, all of those things are filling this cognitive void they have about your reason. Mm-hmm. And if you handle that really well and you are authentic and vulnerable, if they basically feel that you're the same person on the stage that they might be having dinner with, then you'll create a phenomenal connection. And frankly, at that point, even if you're not that skilled, you'll connect really well.
So it's about being authentic, but there've got to be some skill sets in there that people need to have to be able to show up and just to make that connection.
There are. I have to say, I try to avoid talking too much about the skills a lot. And I'll say it like this, that the ability to speak, the ability to tell a story, the ability to connect authentically with people is not a skill. It is a human trait. It is something that everybody was born with, that nobody wasn't born with. Everybody has it. But what has happened as a result of growing up in particular school systems and sometimes overbearing parents and what have you is that we were learned to behave. And we learned behaviors. And as we learned those behaviors, we became smaller and smaller and smaller. We became a smaller version of ourselves. Mm-hmm. And so while there are great skills to learn, the challenge is that if you learn all those skills while you're still small, then you're small using those skills.
Yeah.
And in that case, you'll go to a conference and you'll speak and you'll be better than the average. But if you want to be unforgettable, if you want to be outstanding, then the thing to work on is breaking those behavior limits, breaking those sort of ego protections that we've been taught, and that process turns somebody into an authentic presence. And that's why you can very often have somebody that shows up at a wedding and they're not a good speaker at all, and somebody says, "Hey, could you give a toast?" and they just blow everybody away. They have no skills. Nobody taught them what to do, but they could. Unfortunately, sometimes it was because they had 2 or 3 glasses of wine.
So the inhibitions and the relaxation is there.
That's right. Now, there's a big clue in that. If you think of something, I use golf as a good example. Let's say that, one of my clients comes to me and says, "I don't want to be a speaker. I want to be a world-class golfer." I'm like, "We can do it. I mean, it'll take 8 or 10 years. We'll get you a great coach and a great caddy, and you'll be out there hitting balls and trying things and watching reels. It'll be 8 hours a day, and 10 years from now, we might be able to throw you out on the senior tour." I mean, you could acquire those skills. But with public speaking, you can acquire those skills with 2 or 3 glasses of wine. Why? You can't do that with golf. You just can't. Like, you can't just drink 2 glasses of golf and suddenly hit the ball straight. It doesn't work.
Quite the opposite, probably.
Exactly. And so the difference with speaking is that, and I'm not, of course, advocating for using wine to do this. I'm making the point that it is in there, and alcohol being a depressant depresses your inhibitions and allows you to come out. Now, unfortunately, after the 3rd glass of wine, it allows an even worse version of some people to come out, right? So we don't want to use alcohol as a tool, but I'm using it as a mechanism to demonstrate that it's in there for everybody already.
Yeah.
And so what I do with clients is show them how to let it out without using a depressant. Show them how to let it out so they feel comfortable be themselves. The best compliments I ever get from stage, and I'm lucky, I get lots. I'm really privileged about that. But the one that lands for me the most is when people come up to me, especially if they know me or if they get to spend time with me separate from, say, the seminar or the keynote or whatever, and they go, "Wow, you're the same guy here that you are there." That means something to me.
Yeah, that's really important. You were not always, let's say, a great speaker. I mean, you're talking about whether you're born into it, or we are all born into it. And just going back to that, I say that you're not the voice that you were born with. Because we, as you were saying, we develop these traits as we're growing up, and inhibitions that we develop. But very similar, even our voices are there from the beginning.
Yeah.
As a baby cries, you can use your voice, and it's something that we learn or growing up to suppress that.
We learn it. Like, one way I would often put this is: have you ever seen a 2-year-old on a plane that was afraid of public speaking? No, they're not. They will let the whole plane know that they're not happy in this moment, that they need something. They have no inhibitions. And then, of course, it is important that they are taught that they're taught indoor voice and what have you. The challenge is that what a lot of times adults don't realize is that children sometimes make meanings, and those meanings become rules that guide their entire life. So, children should be seen and not heard. Think before you speak. Use your indoor voice. Start becoming not contextual conversations, but they start becoming rules that guide that person's behavior. Then you go to school, and one day you weren't listening in class, and the teacher, in order to teach you a very adult lesson, and the adult lesson was pay attention to my class, but instead of that lesson, the teacher makes you stand up. You weren't listening. You don't even know the question. And in that moment, instead of you learning, geez, I should really pay attention to this class, what you learn is that public speaking is terrifying because she's making me do it. He's making me do it right now in front of the whole audience. So those lessons become this, pressure that makes us want to be safe when we stand up in front of a room. And what's crazy is I'm so amazed by this. You can ask people, they all have their own fear rules. Like, "Oh, I'm okay if there's only 30 people in the room." Yeah, I'm fine if there's only 30. Then you talk to somebody else, go, 30, that's terrifying. I'm okay if there's 300, but 30, it's too intimate. I can't handle that. Then it's like, I'm okay if it's all women. I can handle that. No, women in the audience just scares. I was like that. Women in the audience scared the hell out of me.
Oh, really?
Then it's like, I'd be fine as long as my dad doesn't walk in. So everybody has their own rules, but the truth is that we can shed that, and we can get to the place where we feel safe and we trust ourselves to be our authentic self in front of any audience or camera or whatever the case might be.
So going back then, where I was going to go with it is it's not something that you have always been good at. And I know your story, you were pretty much thrown onto a stage in an uncomfortable situation. Tell us the story.
I don't even know which one. There's so many of those. It happened to me a lot when I was younger. One was in school. I went to a boarding school, and it was a great boarding school. I mean, I didn't think so at the time, but in retrospect, I now recognize it was a great boarding school. It was called St. John's, and it was a very intense school, only 100 students, so you really kind of got to know everybody pretty intensely. But at one point, we had debating class, and I could handle debating class. It was fun. I could do that, but it was with my class. And remember, in a boarding school, it's not like these are you pretty much know everybody like a brother, right? Like there's only 100 of you, and in your class there's only 15, right? So debating class was fine, but then toward the end of the year, they said, you guys have done so well in your debate class that we were gonna have a debating class at the General Assembly, at the graduation ceremonies, and we were gonna use all the senior classes, but you guys have done so well, we'd like you to debate against the seniors in front of the General Assembly. This is all the students, the parents, the teachers, the relatives, the friends, the alumni, the whole deal. And suddenly I'm like, what? And we have to go do this debate in front of the entire school. And it was terrifying. I mean, it was really, for me, I could see some of the kids are like, I'm like, what's wrong with them? They're not afraid at all. Something's wrong with them. And it was an incredible experience, but it did nothing to change. And I did fairly well. It did nothing to change my fear. I stayed terrified of speaking until I was in my mid-30s.
What changed it then? I mean, that's quite a long time then.
Yeah, and I had to do some speaking in the middle of it, and I can tell you the one thing that didn't change initially, and it's one of the traps. It's one of the things that traps somebody in fear. Like, I have clients and friends that are, just some of the most well-known speakers in the world, and I know some of them still walk on the stage with butterflies, and they've done 10,000 hours plus, and they still walk on the stage with butterflies, and then they're like, yeah, but that's my authentic representation of myself. And I'm like, listen to me right now. There is nothing authentic about faking nervousness. What is really going to happen up there? Nothing. Nobody's going to throw rotten apples at you. Nobody's throwing rotten tomatoes. Nothing's going to happen. What is this nervousness? If you're standing at the door of the plane thinking of jumping out, I'll accept your nervousness. But what is this? Nervousness in front of an audience is an unconscious plea for attention and sympathy. That's what it is.
That's when you're demonstrating nervousness.
Or explaining it. Or saying to people, wow, I'm really nervous about being here.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So as soon as and then the problem is that if you do that, let's say somebody does that, they go and they do a great job. And because I see so many people, they do a fantastic job. The audience is laughing and crying and having a great time. And then the person comes off the stage and everybody tells them, you were so good. And yet they're still nervous the next time. Come on now. If you've done 10 talks in a row and everybody's told you it's great, then what's this nervousness act? Now, people don't realize that it's an act, but it's a learned act. It's a thing we learn in school. Make things look harder than they really are, and get more points. Mm-hmm. I used to use this example, and my wife always said to me, the example makes sense, but I don't know if it's really true. And then, no kidding, we're at one of our kids' schools. Actually, two of our daughters were at the same school, and they were doing like presentation day, and we're sitting in the audience, and the exact thing I'd been describing happened. 4 kids standing up there doing their presentations. They have a handheld microphone. First kid gets the microphone, and he's like, at the beginning of the foundation of the country, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, it's a great speech, perfectly word for word, and does a great job of it. For a kid, it's great. Yeah. Hands it to the second kid, and he gets applause. Yep. Hands it to the second kid. Second kid's like, I do this perfectly, and I've rehearsed it, and nails it.
Right. Yep.
Fantastic. Third kid, freaking out. Stuttering their way through it, just terrified, like really having a hard time with it, forgets their lines, can't quite get there, but struggles through and lands it. What kind of applause does that kid get?
Standing ovation.
Standing ovation. What every kid in the audience and the 4 kids on the stage learns when that happens is, the harder I make this look, the more love and praise I will get. So they all learn, don't bother preparing. They all learn, act afraid. They don't even know they're learning it. It's an unconscious lesson. They don't even know they're learning it. And so now you have fully grown adults in their 40s walking up to do a TED Talk, and they're saying to the audience, well, I'm not very comfortable with all this. I'm like, really? You're really not comfortable with this? Like, you've been told a number of times you're good at it. It's gone well. Nobody's ever killed you. You never got injured. It's not like my friend Raymond Aaron. He fell off the stage and broke his leg. He has a right to be nervous, and he's not. But what's interesting is that when you do that, when somebody does that when they're speaking and they show their nerves, or they tell the audience, it's my authentic representation of myself. I want to be authentic, and tell them I'm nervous. Rubbish. When you tell them that, you're asking them to give you more sympathy. And here's what's crazy. At the end, they do give you a big applause, maybe even a sympathy ovation. Yeah. Nobody wants a sympathy ovation. but people like it. Then all these people come up to you and go, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, you were so good. And in your head, you're going, bullshit. Because you know you authentically asked for it. The minute somebody walks on stage for the first time and says, today, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to blow your mind. I'm going to share with you something right now that I think will change your perspective forever, and I believe you will remember this talk for the rest of your life. And then when people come up to you afterward and tell you how good it was, it'll be less of them. But when they tell you, you'll believe them.
You'll believe them. Yeah. I coached a girl who was into the finals of America's Got Talent. And her very first audition, when she went out, she did exactly that. But as a kid, I think you can get away with it. Even though she's incredibly well, experienced as a performer and is great on stage, she walked out and she giggled and she said, oh, "I'm so nervous," and she won the entire audience over with that little giggle, that smile, that little up down of her feet, and before she started to sing, and then she started singing opera, and everyone just went crazy.
And so then the question that she will ask for the rest of her life, unconsciously maybe, is, did I win purely on the singing? Or did I win on the sympathy? If you watch American Idol and these things now, you get to the point where it's like the guest comes up and they go, oh, why did you come here? Oh, I came here because I was terminal 2 years ago. And
it's all a story.
But it's part of the same thing. It's part of the same thing. It's just whether you're doing a long story or you're just giving your nerves. So I had a client, one of my very first speaking coaching clients, when I first started doing speaking workshops. And she was so scared that she came to a business seminar of mine, and I mentioned public speaking in the business seminar. She started sliding, like she didn't even want me to talk about public speaking. She was so afraid. A few weeks later, she ends up coming to my public speaking workshop, and she does fantastic. Jessica, she's amazing. She does a great job. She goes out there, she starts speaking about mindfulness. She's doing great. One day she sends me a video, and she asked me if I would do a review of it. And back then I would do those. So I got the video and I'm watching it. She was amazing. I was so proud of her. Like my student, she's just doing great, and she's doing fantastic, and she gets a full-on standing ovation. And I'm so proud of her. And while they're clapping for her, she does something not so subtle. And I'm like, no. And this is it. They're all clapping. And she goes, oh. And in that moment, she blew it. Because in that moment, and then of course, what happens to the ovation? It gets stronger. Because people go, oh my gosh, look how much she suffered. And it's like, because we love the underdog. And the trouble is for speakers is that it's a mechanism to get attention. But the trouble is once you've learned to get that attention that way, you're trapped in it.
It's so interesting because I'm going to be honest, I've never really thought about it that way. You just know that there are speakers who struggle more than others, but I frame it more about, nervousness is the same as excitement. It's just how you frame it.
It's how you frame it. It's the big difference between nervousness and biologically, they're the same thing. Yeah. They're basically the same thing. But the difference between nervousness and excitement, in my estimation, is what's happening, what imagery you're creating or what future you're projecting. So if you're nervous about something super cool, you're excited. But if you're excited about something terrifying, you're nervous. Yeah. So what I'm saying is that feeling of excitement might cause a jittering in your stomach, and it might cause some sweaty palms, but as long as it's making you smile and giving you energy and making you feel amazing, then it's great. But if it's causing you to raise adrenaline and cortisol in a stress chemical kind of way, it's going to start affecting your memory. And it's going to affect how good you are on stage. So you're using this sympathy technique, but you don't recognize that it's actually damaging your ability to be properly authentic. And then on top of that, it traps you in that cycle. Like it traps you in the cycle of this work. I remember the very first time I did an event for Mindvalley, and I was long over my fears at that point, but I had done a talk. I'd flown to Greece and I'd done a talk. And that night, Vishen and Christina, they came up to me, the founders of Mindvalley, they came up to me and said, listen, we had a bit of a complaint, from the audience. And I was like, oh my God, like what? And they said, well, the audience is saying we didn't give you enough stage time. Would you do another session tomorrow? And most conferences don't suddenly have extra time, right?
No, that's
most
true.
conferences are running out of time.
That's very true.
So they carved out and they asked me to do another 20-minute talk. Now, the challenge with 20-minute talks is they require a huge amount of preparation in my mind. Like, you want me to speak for 3 hours? I'll do it now. I don't need to prepare for that. I mean, tell me the topic. I can put it together now. You want me to talk for 20 minutes? I have to think about that. It's the old Mark Twain.
Yeah, because you've got to be more concise, more impactful.
Yeah, Mark Twain writing and saying, if I'd had more time, this letter would have been shorter. It's kind of like that. So now they want me to do a 20-minute talk tomorrow. We have a big party tonight. Then we have this is insane. When am I going to prepare for it? But I did. And I walked out on the stage and I felt a little jitter. I was like, oh, that's how I used to feel 20 years ago because I didn't have a chance to prepare. And I realized, no, you're going to be okay. This is ridiculous. Don't do that. So I walked out and I listened to my mouth speaking because you know how that is sometimes, right? Like your mouth is saying stuff and you're like, oh my God, what's going on? And my mouth said exactly that. It said, I'm really glad that I get to share with you something new today. And I believe many of you will remember this talk for years to come. That's a hell of a frame. It's a hell of a thing to say at the beginning of a 20-minute talk, right?
You're setting
but the
it
truth
up.
is it's true. That was 15 years ago. People still write to me about that talk.
Right.
And so I believe that the showing your nerves and all kind of stuff, people sometimes think that it's some kind of authenticity, but I don't buy that at all. I think that anytime you tell the audience you're uncomfortable or you're nervous, think of it another way. Imagine you want to sell them something. You want to get them to invest in your company. You want them to sign up for your course. You want them to vote for you. You want them to change behavior. How would you feel if you went on a tour with a tour guide and the tour guide said, I'm a bit nervous about all this?
Yeah.
You wouldn't like that.
No, exactly.
And you wouldn't be as inclined to take their advice.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you think about it, many times when we're speaking, we're there to offer perspectives, advice, mentoring, coaching, we're teaching. So if you're nervous, how good are you going to be?
But what happens, okay, let's say you're not walking out there, but in the middle, something goes wrong, something throws you off. Do you then show a bit of vulnerability and let the audience know, well, I'll just lost that, but give me a second, I'll get back on track? Do you let it, make it clear and then brush it over and continue on? Or do you try to cover it up, but then, the audience is going to...
That's a really good question. I would never try to, quote, cover it up, but I would utilize. So here's an example. I believe that as the speaker, you should never throw the tech team under the bus. You should never throw the producer under the bus. So,
I agree.
Your mic stops working and stuff, don't blame them for it.
Absolutely.
You find a way to distract the audience from what's going wrong and give them a chance to fix it and move on, right? So in the case, say you're using a headset mic and the words are, then you quickly grab a handheld mic and you switch to it. The audience will barely even notice that. They'll barely even notice. Don't say it. Don't go, oh, guys, I'm just switching. Funny story. My very good friend, Roland Toko, he's just a phenomenal guy. He's the guy who first brought me to Estonia, where I've done lots and lots of work. And he and I both got invited to speak in Kazakhstan. So we fly off to Kazakhstan, but because of my schedule, I have to go on before him, and he's really intimidated by that. He's like, I don't want to follow you. And I'm like, the best talks are when you follow greatness. And I accept why you're afraid, but you're going to do better because I'm going to set the bar for you. And I'm like, and he's a client and a friend, and I want to help him with that. So, and then I have to leave. So I do my thing and I leave, and he has to go on stage. So he goes on stage, and basically that type of thing happens. There's some problem with the microphone. So what does he do? He goes, okay, now everybody, do you enjoy that last session? Turn to your friend and tell them what you learned. And of course, this gives 2 minutes. And there's like 2,000 people in the room, so it's noisy, right? But everybody turns to each other talking. That now nobody notices that he has to go over to the tech deck and get a new microphone. Nobody notices. This is a world-class delivery. Like, this is his first international event. Of course, he's a student of mine, so he knows what to do. But he does all this perfectly. The audience, by the time it's all done, and he walks out and everything's fixed, they will never even have known anything was wrong.
Yeah.
In fact, they were like,
That's
I
brilliant.
love that moment. But the kicker was the MC. The MC from the event was not a professional in the same way. The MC is having a coffee and looks out and goes, oh my God, the audience is talking to themselves and Roland is over there. And the MC runs up on the stage and he goes, don't worry, everyone. We will fix Roland's microphone in a minute. Oh, look, come on now. So I think that's the one thing. It's not covering up. It's utilization and improv. But I think more to your question is, what about if you forget what you're going to say? What if you blank out? One of the biggest fears people have. And I think the easiest way to overcome that fear is to do it on purpose. So you're in front of the audience, you're doing a talk, and you just at one point, you just go, where was I going with that? And what's amazing is the audience will always go, you were in Paris on the train station. Oh yeah, I was in Paris. No, you didn't need their help. But what you just established is that there are guardrails.
Yeah.
And the reason that's really helpful is that your sense of protection comes away. You're like, oh, I'm actually safe. So even if I were to forget where I was going, all I have to do, and it's so funny, one of my clients, very, very, I won't drop a name for this one, very prominent, incredibly gifted speaker. And he was doing an event in LA a couple of months ago. And at one point that happened to him in the middle of it. He just suddenly blanked. And he turned to the audience and he goes, now where was I going with that? And they shouted it out to him, and he went and he kept going, and it was golden. It was perfect the way he did it. And then about 20 minutes later, it happened to him again. It happened to him again, and it was a long flight and not much preparation. It happened to him again, and then he did it again. And I asked him afterward. I said, "Were they both genuine? Were they both genuine, or was one of them just a little stage?" And he goes, "No, both were genuine." But even I couldn't tell. Even I couldn't tell whether they were genuine or just a little stage trick. And so the idea is you begin to realize the audience is there interactively with you. Now, there are obviously some environments that can't work. You're speaking at the UN. You're not going to go, hey, where was I going with that, everybody? There are obviously environments, but most of the time, we can do that. No problem at all.
Love that. I'm going to use that one. That's a good one.
I love it. And, a neat way to play with it, actually. And okay, so if you look at, say, the Harvecker Train the Trainer type model, my good friend David Wood's so good at this, Bruce Music, they're really good at this. They'll do things like, so what we're going to learn right now is spontaneity. What are we going to learn? Spontaneity, right? The call response thing. I don't particularly like that myself, so I don't use it enough, but I know how valuable it is. So it's my thing that I have to get over that, right?
Yeah.
But my version of it is something else. I'll be okay. So when I was a kid, I was really, really inspired by the archaeologist Harrison Ford. What was his name? The movie. And they always somebody's going to go remember. Indiana Jones. They're going to do it right now. Yeah. What are the odds that I don't remember Indiana Jones? Pretty low. Of course I don't. Yeah. But it's a similar mechanism. And the idea is that it kind of keeps the audience on their toes. They're like, wow, he's not totally paying attention, so we better.
Yeah. No, I've heard you do this a lot. Or at least you ask a lot of questions when you're on stage just to get them thinking or just get a little bit of feedback. And that keeps it very interactive and keeps the audience always engaged with you. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. I want to talk about executives. Have you worked with I think you work a lot with entrepreneurs and people who are wanting to be on stage, but what about going into the corporate world? Because they're a lot stiffer. And
yeah, they are. And I'll tell you, it's so interesting. I was on a TV program earlier this week, and one of the guests on the show came out, and somehow a bunch of us kind of dressed similarly, and she didn't. She was really bright and stuff, and she goes, "Oh, I should have been more aligned with you guys." And I was like, "No, then you'd have been camouflaged. Now you got to stand out." And I think that's something more people in corporate need to recognize. Now,
I agree.
So I've had the great honor, one of my favorite clients that I've worked with in this area is Emirates. And I came and spoke at Emirates Airlines, their big sales conference a year and a half or 2 years ago. And then I came again and spoke at their HR conference. And first of all, I mean, quite aside from loving being on their planes, their team is just amazing. Yeah. Working with them and speaking at their events has been a real highlight for me. And when I was doing one of my talks, I wasn't speaking per se. I was speaking about sales, but of course I spoke about communication and speaking. And it was really interesting because I often give this example. And the example I give is that let's say you're the finance director of a company. Then this is the way you give your presentation. You fit in with everybody else. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been reviewing the finances, and so for this quarter, I would like to announce that while we projected 16% on the quarter, we actually produced 18%. Well done, everybody. It's like bloody normal and camouflaged and fitting in, right? Yes. No emotional response, what have you. I said, but a really good FD, a really good financial director is going to walk out and go, okay, everybody, I know I don't have the most, exciting topic in the world, but if you really think about it, money is pretty exciting. I mean, it's what allows us to reinvest. It's what allows us to pay bonuses. So I want to talk a little bit about money. And I want you to know that last quarter, we projected 16%. And I thought that was ridiculously optimistic. And I have to tell you, we didn't. I got the numbers this morning, and I read them twice to make sure. We did not achieve 16%. We got 18%. Totally different presentation. Same
Absolutely.
Information.
Yep.
Kicker is that the next conference I spoke at, I don't know if he's a financial director, but certainly I think CFO, really great guy. He got up and he gave the best CFO talk I'd ever seen at a corporate. It was incredible. He was not trying to fit in. He was trying to stand out. He was trying to be memorable, and maybe not even trying, but he was being memorable. So in corporate, I think that what I would say is this: there is no greater accelerant to income and career projection than public speaking.
Yep.
There's none. In corporate America, statistics are really clear about this. You make more money for every inch or 2.5 centimeters taller you are. That's like a statistic. You literally make more money if you're taller. Tom Cruise doesn't seem to care about that. It seems to be working out okay for him. But you make more money on the average for every inch taller you are. And no kidding, there's a surgery you can get to fix this. You can go have a surgery. I was watching a movie about this. I can't remember thinking of a name. Threesomes or something. It was like one of the actors. His character had they break the leg,
add extra,
and they add it in, and the guy you can apparently add 6 inches or something like that. It's incredible, right? But it costs $100,000. But if you think about it, if it's going to earn you an extra $5,000 or $10,000 a year, there's an ROI.
That's insanity.
And then of course the other side of it is on the man side. It's a dating superpower to be 6'4" rather than 5'6" or something, right? What I would say is for all of that and for all the surgery and the cost and what have you, nothing will compete with being a great public speaker.
Yep.
In fact, even Tom Cruise is a good example of that. He is ultimately a public speaker. He's an actor, but the fact is that when you put yourself out there, when you make people feel, when you are able to be memorable, then it isn't about height anymore. It is about value proposition. And so in the corporate world, I think there's no greater investment that anybody could ever make in their corporate life than learning to be a great presenter and learning to be willing to stand out.
Yep. I stand by that 100%. That's what all of my messaging is about when I'm speaking with these executive level people, that even when you get to the top, what's going to make you shine and be not just successful but iconic in your job is the way that you can communicate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but you were saying that a lot of people, they're conforming. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They don't want to step outside their comfort zone. They don't want to be different. And that's the challenge, is helping them to understand that that's what's going to help them excel, is breaking that mindset barrier.
Yeah, it is a funny thing about mass psychology. I'm sure you've seen these social media videos where they put say 3 people in an elevator and they have them face backwards, and then new people get on the elevator and they're like, why are they facing backwards? But they don't face backwards. But then another person who's an actor gets in the elevator and faces backwards. So now the person who got on in the middle, who's not facing backwards, actually turns around and faces backwards.
Conforming.
So much is our desire to fit in. And
would you?
Absolutely not.
No, neither would I.
No, I wouldn't. I would ask them. I would be like, what's going on here? Is there a reason? Is there a secret door back there that I don't know about? I would make some fun of it. But the truth is, in the corporate world, we've kind of been taught that there's a certain corporate fashion, and there's a reason that you kind of have to fit in and create a certain level of professionalism. But when you combine that desire to fit in with what we were taught by our parents in school about conforming in our communication, then you end up with death by PowerPoint and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Today, I'll be speaking in this incredibly monotonous tone, and I'm not going to make any difference in your life whatsoever. And my biggest hope is that you don't fall asleep. Jesus.
And my slides will be really boring and filled with all of the content, and I'm going to read straight from my slides.
Yeah. We've had so many of our clients come to us and go, okay, I learned it all, and I went to go do my corporate presentation, but I only gave it 2 out of 10. I couldn't do everything you taught me. I couldn't do everything. I just couldn't do it. But I got the promotion, and now I'm doing all of it. They recognize, and what's crazy? There's proof, by the way. There's proof that this is going to work, and here's the way it works. Think of ask your clients ever, have you ever been to a networking event or a party, and there's one person who is just super gregarious, and they tell great stories, and everybody's watching them, and they're like the life of the party and what have you. Do you admire them? Yes.
Yes.
Then why do you want to fit in with those?
True.
Right? You admire that person, but you're not willing to do it. That's where you want to make the change. And it changes everything. The career ladder changes phenomenally when you can present your ideas well, when you're willing to share what's going on in your mind, and you can do it effectively and influentially.
And what about using stories? I mean, I know stories across all presenting is the backbone of any presentation.
Yeah.
But in corporate, there again, they don't really believe, or it's very hard to convince them that a story is going to help you support your facts and figures.
You know, one of the ways that I like to demonstrate it, it's a real life experience that happened to me. And you know, we've all been, for those of us, most of us who have been on planes, we've all heard, in case of a cabin depressurization, please put your own mask on before you help others. We've all heard this, right? So I was doing a workshop recently, and I had 300 or 400 people, and I said, I want an honest truth from all of you right now. The plane goes into a bit of a dive, oxygen masks drop. Do you really put your own mask on first, or do you take care of your kids? And I was shocked to find 60% of them raised their hands and said no. Raised their hands and nope, I'm helping the kids first. I'm helping the kids. And by the way, most of them were women. Most of them were women. Men were more inclined to put the mask on and help their kids. The women were like, no, I'm taking care of my kids. Mom guilt and the like, right?
Yep.
So then I said, okay, now I want to try an experiment. This is a true story that I'm going to share with you.
Okay. About
a year and a half ago, my wife and I and one of our daughters, one of our middle daughters, we were on a plane flying across the ocean, and we were about an hour off the coast of Ireland. And the captain came on and made an announcement that none of us could hear because he was shouting so loudly and he was so scared that none of us could hear through the distortion which language he was speaking, never mind what he was saying.
Wow. Then
the plane went into the deepest dive I've ever experienced in my life. Oxygen mask dropped from the ceiling. The cabin crew sprinted down the aisles, levitating as they went, and people were screaming and crying, and we were dying. As far as we could tell, it was over. The plane was in a deep, steep dive. We knew we were an hour off the coast of Ireland. It was bad. And I don't know what goes on for me. I've been in some crazy, like I was in the Atlantis Hotel in the Bahamas once when 4 guys walked in with assault rifles, and I was just calm. I don't know why. You cut me off in traffic and I can get angry, but big stuff happens and I'm stoic, right? So I was super stoic. I was like, I handled it. And my wife and daughter, they were about 4 rows behind me. We weren't sitting together, so I couldn't go to them because you cannot unbuckle when there's no gravity, right? Yeah. So I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? And I immediately take a couple breaths. I go, okay, if we survive this, we're going to need our passports. So I reach down into my bag at my feet and I pull all the passports out and I put them in my breast pocket. And then I look down at my feet, I'm barefoot. I've seen Die Hard. I don't want to be barefoot. So I put on my shoes. Now I'm putting my shoes on and collecting my passports while we're diving at the planet. The couple beside me is freaking out. They're looking at me, what the heck?
He's ready to jump.
What the hell does he know? But the most magical thing that I saw in that moment was in front of me was a family, 3 seats together and one across the aisle, a mother, father, and the 2 kids. And the father reached up, grabbed the mask, put it on his face, scooped it on, grabbed the first kid, put the mask on him. Kid woke up, freaking out, didn't want the mask, fought the mask. Mm-hmm. Imagine if the father didn't have his. Mm. He wouldn't have been able to sit there and fight that. Had he not put his mask on first, they would both have had a serious problem, and it could be a very serious problem. And so I tell the story, totally true story. It was a phenomenally, we survived, by the way. We
Thank God. You're here.
We ended up landing in Dusseldorf later, and it turned out just to be a cabin depressurization problem and so on. But I then asked the audience again. Now, how many of you would put your own oxygen mask on if this ever happened to you? Every hand went up. No hesitation. That's the difference between a story that creates a memory for somebody. Like some of them now have a memory of what it's like to be on a plane when the cabin depressurization happens. The cabin crew doesn't give you that memory. They give you an instruction. And so in corporate, we want to do the same thing. If you're an HR advisor and you want to talk about, appropriate language or unwanted sexual advancements that are misconceived and what have you. You want to talk about that kind of stuff. It's one thing to say, be careful about your language and blah, blah, blah. It's another thing to say, all right, last week we had a complaint in one of our other divisions, and this is what happened. And notice how innocent it seemed as it was happening. But I want you to understand what it felt like from the other person's perspective. And you tell it like a story. All of a sudden, there are people going, holy, I've done that and I had no idea. I didn't realize. An instruction will never be as effective as an experience.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, you've demonstrated it perfectly here. So, the point made. It's just explaining that or demonstrating that exactly like that so that they get the point. And there's really great examples.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talking about storytelling, though, because you're very big on storytelling and you're very, very good at it. You're even demonstrating it here today, that you just are able to go from one story to another and tie that to a lesson and educational points as well. How do we find stories? Because most people I talk to, they say, or even myself, I can't think of a story, or I think of it in the middle of the night and then I'll remember that in the morning and I haven't remembered it in the morning. So what are your tips to, I guess, document your stories and be able to then translate them into stories that other people will be able to connect with?
The first principle that I always share with people about this is a concept called Rembrandts in the attic. And it's a real estate metaphor. So the idea is that, we're looking at an old farmhouse. It's an estate sale. The old couple passed away. They had no kids and there's an estate sale. And it's a complete sale. So you buy the property and you just get everything that's in the property. So you're looking around and there's a barn and there's an old tractor and what have you. And then you're in the attic of the old house. And you see there's a bunch of old paintings and you're just like, what I burn these? Like, wait, that one's a Rembrandt. It's been sitting here for 30 years. It's worth $7 or $8 million. Suddenly, how much is this property worth? But only to the person who's aware of the Rembrandt. To everybody else, the property's worth $150,000. But to you, this property's worth $7 million, right? We have life experiences that are exactly like that. You have lived through stuff that you discount as potentially valueless. And if you don't, because you've understood this, many people do. They've been through this one breakup and it broke them. I mean, it's called a breakup for a reason, right? Like it broke them, it was, but they got through it. And they found gratitude from it in the end. And their journey of breakup to gratitude is unbelievably valuable to this person who's about to go through a breakup.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel valuable because you're in possession of it. It's a dusty old Rembrandt sitting in the attic. So the first thing is to recognize that any life experience that you have had that caused an emotional response strong enough to trigger a memory is inventory. That's it. Like, I don't care. You don't know what it's for yet. But if you had an emotional response, it is inventory. It might be simply entertainment value. It might be metaphorical value, but it might also be allegorical teaching. It might be instructional. I don't know. But if you had an emotional response, it's valuable. So that's the first core principle. Then the next principle is don't trust your memory. Like I yesterday spent a good 9 minutes looking for the glasses that were on my head. Okay.
Look, ask my family about that exact situation.
Right? Like, I think I'm pretty sharp. I know I'm smart. But every now and again, my memory is not where I want it to be. Where the hell is my glasses? So I want to say that what people should do is keep a story journal, but I don't believe that they should ever write out the stories, ever. Because when they write the story out, they try to engage the wrong kind of memory. They try to remember the script. And I'm just not interested in that. What I think you do is you have a story journal. You go, hey, here's the title of the story. Here's the key bullet points that happen in the story. Here's some tags. The story's good for sales. The story's good for this. The story's that, and so on. And you keep a journal of those things. And of course, I believe it's great in our generation, start with paper. But once you've got a good story journal, you can put that into Evernote or OneNote or Notion or, there's any number
Google Doc.
The one great advantage of using something like Notion is now you go in and go, I need to do a sales talk. And you just search sales. And every one of your sales stories comes up. And these days, like, I'm often asked to suddenly fill in at an event. Like they'll go, oh, there was speaker missed their flight. Can you fill? And I'm like, yeah, I did a talk yesterday, but I'll have to write a new one. And I will go to, look at my story journal and go, okay, what do you want me to cover? And they go, we want you to cover conflict resolution or leadership or sales. Then I just go to my story journal and go, all right, I've got these 8 stories. I'll use 3 of them. And I think that everybody should have that.
So do we write them down as they happen to us or as we get a memory, or do we go searching for them and try to put it together?
Yes, and yes, all of them. Like, if something is happening to you, and I mean, Here's a great hack. You go to WhatsApp and you create a group with a friend of yours and you call the group My Stories, and then you kick your friend out. You still have a group, right? But it's just a group with you.
That's a hack.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
I have tons of those. And now and especially now because WhatsApp transcribes. If you've got the right version of the app, it transcribes for you. So now you've just been through an incident. You were just at the check-in counter of the airline and the person was rude, but you won them over and you made them laugh and then they gave you an upgrade. Great story, right? Yeah. So, you go, oh yeah. So you go and you open up your thing and you go, I've got a story. And you just speak it in. You just speak it in, and then you've got the whole thing in this one long. And you can use Otter to do this, which is really great. But really quickly, everybody's got WhatsApp. You just dump it in there, and then you've got this long history of all your stories. You can then export them and put them into some system and manage them.
Oh, that's such a great hack.
Yeah.
What about using AI to help you find or craft your story? So I'm not talking about have it write them for you, because obviously it can't unless you give it the information in the first place.
I think that people who are apprehensive or unwilling to use AI they're no different than the people who said we shouldn't let kids use calculators. Like this is the technology that's coming now, and we should use it. But equally, if you use the calculator all the time, you'll lose your math skills. So you want to find that balance. I will use AI in a number of different ways. I've never written a talk on AI, but I have an AI that has my story journal in it. I have an AI that's got my books in it. So I've written and published 3 books, and then I've got 2 books in development now, and they're in there. Mm-hmm. So they have my story journal's in there. So now let's say you book me and hey, listen, we need you to come and do a talk at our HR conference in Dubai tomorrow night. I'm like, okay, I can go to the AI and go, hey, here's the target audience that I need to speak with. They would like me to cover rapport. They'd like me to cover rapport and connection for staff reviews and interviewing technique and conflict resolution. So I put that in there. I tell who the company is, and I go, on that basis, create for me a map of what you think the ideal talk would be for that based on my stories. And it just does it. Yeah. And I basically do that in my brain anyway. That's how I've always done it. It's just now the AI often will remind me of stories that I just hadn't thought of in that moment.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, that's perfect. I actually did that with a book as well. So, and as you were saying, AI has all the information, so it's feeding only off your own information and your stories.
But remember now, what it can do as well is, for example, I did this when I was going to do this event for Emirates. So I was preparing to do the talk, and one of the talks I wanted to talk about, one of the lessons that I was teaching in communication was the difference between literal and inferential external communication and literal and inferential listening. So the idea here is that if I am an inferential communicator, then I might say to you, oh yeah, it's really dry in here. And what I'm hoping is you're going to pick up the cue that I'm thirsty, and you're going, oh yeah, well, Eric, don't worry, we get you water. A literal communicator say, hey, where's the water? Can you get me a water? Or where can I get a water? And what happens very often when people mismatch here is that if you have an inferential communicator with a literal listener, it's very dissatisfying, because the inferential person keeps hinting and this person's listening for literal cues, and it doesn't work. And this is true whether you're talking about an HR situation or your sex life. If you're not communicating effectively, there's a problem. So I'm thinking there's a million ways to describe this, but I'm getting ready to go with Emirates, and I go, hey, I'm speaking at Emirates, and I tell it that I'm going to speak at Emirates. Which of the stories that I would work really well here? Suddenly it reminds me of one that I've used many times. I've used it in one of my books, and that is that years ago they discovered at Korean Airlines that they looked at a number of their air incidents they'd had, and by incident, I mean not good incidents. And one of the things they found that was really quirky about that was that when they had an incident, it was usually with the more senior pilot at the yoke. That makes no sense. Mm-hmm. You would think that more incidents would happen with the junior pilot. Mm-hmm. What was going on? And what they found was that when the senior, because in Korea there's such a high deference level to seniority, there's a real hierarchy. So if you're the senior captain and I'm your co-pilot and you're coming in a bit hot, then what I might say is, we might be coming in a bit. Are we coming in at a good rate?
Right.
And you're like, yeah, it's fine. And then that's the last thing on the sound box.
Yeah.
Whereas if I was at the yoke, you would go, hey, you're coming in hot, bring it down, because you were okay to talk like that to me, right? And so they had to retrain the culture to get rid of that inferential language. And so what a neat story, especially given that I'm speaking for an airline.
Yeah.
And so the AI reminds me that I used that story before and I'm able to do it. And I might not remember it in that moment. So I find that whether you use an AI or not, having a great story journal is just the ultimate resource.
Yeah. Yeah. Storytelling. I'm not sure how much time we have left, but I want to get more into the art of storytelling, because it's one thing to fact tell. For example, yesterday I was working with a friend, colleague. She's got a TED Talk coming up this weekend. She said, could you help me do a run through and give me your feedback, especially from the perspective of how I'm delivering? And what I noticed was that she was very much fact-telling some of the stories. So I went to the park, I saw the trees, I saw this man, and I said, you know, your voice is going the same way with every piece of information you're telling me. Why don't you, I said, put it back in your mind and imagine yourself walking through the park. What did you see? What did you feel? And explain that to me as you are seeing it.
Yeah.
And what memories, how did the voice then, how can your voice express that? Yeah. I want to know how much of that you can tap into.
Yeah, very, very. So there's two mechanisms that we use with our clients on this. The one is we use the metaphor of altitude. So are you telling the story at a high altitude or at a low altitude? At a high altitude, you can pass over time fast. So, all right, we were getting ready to go on vacation. We were going to Africa. We booked the tickets. We got in the car, bags packed, ready to go. We got to the check-in desk. This is high-level storytelling. Right? It's like, I'm not telling, I'm just giving you the facts.
Yep.
These are, in Hollywood, what we call an establishing shot. You know, a shot of San Francisco with the Golden Gate Bridge, it's nighttime.
Which works in certain scenarios.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you can high level your way in just to get people context. But then you want to come lower down. And the lower down you come, generally, more time slows down because you're giving somebody a textured experience. So that's the first thing we want to show our clients is the difference between storytelling up here and down here. So an example of that might be, like I said, we checked in, we got to the counter, everything was fine, and then all of a sudden, there was a problem with the booking. And the guy looked up and said, well, we don't find your booking here. We can see that there was one, but it was canceled. And my stomach sunk into my feet. Like, what do you mean the booking's not there? We have to be there. We have to be there by tomorrow. And now I'm in the moment, right? I'm in that actual moment. So that's the high level, the low level. So that's one metaphor that I really find helpful with people. But the other one is to create a holodeck. And this is the technique. And it's so interesting, I didn't know I was doing this. So years ago, I learned that in neurolinguistic programming, they talk about a concept called modeling, which is like better than imitating. It's like not simply mimicking what you're doing physically, but understanding what's going on in your mind, right? And I heard this great example of modeling Wayne Gretzky. And it turned out, because if you think of Wayne Gretzky as a hockey player, I'm Canadian, I have to talk about Wayne Gretzky. But he is, in most sports, you have an argument about who the greatest is. Was it Djokovic? Was it Federer? If you use this metric, is that if it's with hockey, there really isn't any discussion about it, because really by every metric, Wayne Gretzky was the greatest hockey player. He had more goals than any other player had goals and assists. Like he was, but he wasn't the biggest, he wasn't the fastest, didn't have the hardest shot. There was no one skill that he had that was like special in that sense, except he could tell the future. Uh-huh. He could skate to where the puck was going to be, and nobody could figure out how he could do that. And he would send a pass over his shoulder without looking, and it would land on his player. It's like he knew. And so one day, apparently, there was a modeling exercise done with him where they put him into state. Like, you're on the ice, you can smell it. It's cold air coming up. Now tell me, what is going on for you right now? Why did you send the pass back around your shoulder? And he goes, oh, that. He goes, what I do is I have an image of the whole rink, and I elevate it above my head, so I can see the whole rink, because when you're on the rink, you can only see what's in front of you. Yeah. And I put it above me, and then I just fast forward the game by 10 seconds. That was it. Like, that was his model. And a funny thing is, I taught this to a hockey team that I was coaching in England at the time, and we immediately got to number 2 in a league by teaching the players that one thing. It was so interesting. So one day, I'm trying to teach storytelling, 15, maybe 10 years ago, and I'm like trying to get how do I do that? How do I drop into the story? I realized I was doing almost the same thing. What I do is I create a holodeck. So you ask me, tell me about the time you were in the casino when the guys walked in with guns and shot the place up. Okay. So I immediately, even as I'm talking to you, I start formulating the casino around me. I can hear them. Mm-hmm. I can hear the people playing at their games. I can smell that tobacco smell. Ugh. I can feel it all taking shape around me. So no matter where I look, I can describe it to you. I can tell you that the bar is right there, but just on the other side of the bar is the cage, where they keep the money and they do the change. I can see it. I can see it now.
So it's like being in virtual reality glasses and you're in it.
Yeah, which means that I can move perspectives. I can go fast. I can go forward. I can go backward in time. I can move it. And so as I'm relaying it to you, it feels very real to me. The more real it feels to me, the more real it feels to you.
That's so true. So what I described that as you're using VAX.
Yeah.
Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and smell. You're making all of these senses come alive by visualizing it and feeling it and expressing it in the way you speak. And your audience then will connect with that then.
Yeah.
They'll connect with you on an emotional level.
Yeah.
And it's the emotional level which builds the trust, the authenticity, the likability, the believability.
Yeah. Do you know Janet Atwood?
No.
She wrote, she co-wrote the Passion Test and The Hidden Riches, and she's a New York Times bestseller in a number of ways, and good friend of mine for many, many years. Great speaker, great woman, just phenomenal person. And she came up to me one day at an event in Copenhagen, and she came up to me and she goes, "How do you do that?" And I go, "What?
Do what?
That thing." I go, "What thing?" She goes, "That thing you do." And I go, "What thing, Janet? What thing?" She talks like that. She's like, and I go, she says that thing where nobody leaves the room and they sit at the edge of their chair and they don't look at their phones. That thing. And I go, "Oh, that thing."
Oh, that thing.
That thing. And now I realize I have a very good friend of mine, very respected mentor of mine, asking me for coaching advice. And I'm like, okay, now you got to be careful, right? Do I really have permission? So I go, "All right, Janet, do you really want to know?" And she goes, "Yes, I really want to know." I go, "Oh, yeah, I'm telling stories." And she goes, "Yeah, but I tell stories." And I go, "Well, actually, you report." She goes, "What?" And I go, "Well, you report." And she goes, she's like, no, I told a story. I told a story about how I ran away from home. And I go, "No, you reported about that." She goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Do you mind if I tell you the story back yourself?" And she goes, "What?" I go, "I'm going to tell you your story." She goes, "Okay." I get first a few questions, and I ask some questions. At one point in her story, she talks about, getting a job and not liking it and going downstairs and jumping into her car. The car, what kind of car was that? And she goes, "I don't know. It was the 60s, man. I don't remember. If you remember the 60s, you weren't really there." So anyway, she doesn't remember that. Now, I jump into the story, and I won't do the whole thing now for time, but basically I jump into the story and I talk about what it's like. I'm 16 years old and, my parents are like controlling me and I run away from home and I end up in the Haight-Ashbury district in the middle of the great movement. I mean, I'm in the middle of the hippie movement in the 60s, and I tell the whole story just like she told it, but I'm in it. I'm in it all the way. And I go, and then my friends got me a job because I'd run out of money, and I'm upstairs doing this job and I hate it. I mean, it's just, I've been there for 20 minutes and I know I can't do this. I can't be here. It's just, there's something not right. There's wallpaper peeling over there and the gray. I get up from my desk and I don't even say goodbye to anybody. I just leave. I don't quit. I just leave. And I walk down the stairs and I open the door and I get in and she goes, "Red Ford Escort." Now, what's going on? This is so important to storytelling, in my opinion. Memory is the glue that emotion is the glue that causes memory to stick. Mm-hmm. But emotion is also the key that releases memory.
Yeah. So that's what happened there.
If you get fully engaged in the feeling of the story, you'll remember it better yourself, even as a storyteller. And no kidding, I'm on a podcast 3 weeks later and I'm telling this example just like this, just like this. And when I get to the end, he goes, "Red Ford Escort," the host. And I'm like, "What? How do you?" He goes, "We had Janet on the show and she told the story." So memorable it was that he remembered it in the way I was telling it. Memory is all about that emotional response, and that's got to be the key. So one of my favorite expressions about this is, if you want the audience to feel, then you have to feel that.
65% of people come away from a talk having remembered a story, and only 5% will remember data and facts.
And that 5%.
That's so profound.
It is. And that 5%, almost always, it's because they had a cognitive vacancy about those facts. They already had an active curiosity. And that's why they remembered them, because they had an opening in their brain for that information. The other people didn't, and so they don't remember it. And by the way, that is also an emotional response. If I give you information that is emotionally satisfying to you, you'll remember it. But in a lecture, that's this much.
Yeah.
With a story, it can be the whole thing.
Yeah. And you are a master of it. So to all of my listeners, when you get the chance, you've got to go check out Eric on any opportunity that you have on your YouTube, go see him when he's speaking at Mindvalley. If he's got a workshop coming up, make sure you get your ticket to that. And I'm hoping you're going to be coming to Dubai sometime soon.
I can tell you actively. Yesterday I did an Instagram live, and we asked everybody where the next speaking. I do once a year a 5-day deep intensive, and we asked everybody where it should be, and overwhelmingly Dubai was.
I saw that.
Yeah, so we did a poll today. We took Dubai, LA, London, Zurich, and Singapore were the top ones, and right now Dubai is in the lead.
Way in advance. Yeah,
but I've got a gift for everybody if you like.
Please,
and that is this: that there are different styles of speaking, different styles of influence. So whether somebody's a leader or a teacher or a speaker, influencer, a politician, it doesn't really matter. There are 8, let's say, impact profiles. And when you understand your impact profile, it really helps you to play into your strengths and then build the right systems and support around you to build a phenomenal business. And when I first decided to get into speaking, because I'm not like many of them, at 18 years old, I went and saw Tony Robbins and thought, wow, I'd love to do this, but I was way too afraid of speaking. So I didn't. I went into the business world, and I was involved in a variety of different businesses, and I only got into speaking really 15 years ago. But when I did that, I did what I would do with any business. I did the market research, and I looked at all the different business models, and I saw like Tony Robbins had built a phenomenal brand based on his identity. He celebritized himself, and he's a genius. He's done such a great job of that. Then I looked at Harv Eker, and while Harv Eker built some identity, what he really built was a business system around his seminar. So he didn't have to be at the seminars. Tony has to be at his, right? Different model. Yep. Then I looked at Robert Kiyosaki, and I looked at Kiyosaki, and I was like, oh, he went the leverage path. He created, it's all about IP. He turned it into, books and digital programming and games and stuff like that. So there were these different models. And the truth is, the most phenomenally successful people in the world will run all of them. But they need to know which one is their epic flow, which one is the one that really, and we call this an impact profile. So if anybody goes to impactdynamics.net, they can do, our test is free up and probably until about the end of the year because we're in test mode. They will find out what their impact profile is, and it'll give them a really clear description of what strengths they should work on, what shadow behaviors they should watch out for, and what weaknesses they have in their profile, and then how to build a team around that. It's very, very valuable.
Oh, I love that. I'd love to get into a whole other conversation about the Gallup tests that I've had somebody on talking about as well, but it sounds very similar and it sounds incredibly valuable. So we'll make sure that that's in the show notes.
Sounds
You've already
good.
mentioned the link. And Eric, I can only say I feel honored to have had you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Impact Through Voice podcast. Now, if you've reached the end of this episode, then it means you're enjoying the podcast. So I have a quick favor to ask. If you haven't yet subscribed, please go and do it now and even leave us a review because it really does help us so much to reach more people and impact more people. And I would be very, very grateful. Now, I love to read all of your comments about the show and what you're enjoying, what you would like to hear more of. So please take the time and go and do that now. When you do that, please take a screenshot and then tag me on Facebook or Instagram. That's Lisa Hugo Official. Now, I'm going to be sure to share your post, and I'm also going to private DM you with a thank you. And it also means you won't miss an episode. And as a subscriber, then you're going to get access to more content that we don't even open up to everybody. So thanks again. And until next time, keep on working towards your goals and making a positive impact on the world with your voice.